Welcome to Aligned with Kell, the podcast where we talk all things small business. It's a mix of mindset, empowerment, real conversations, and of course, alignment. I'm your host, Kell, a businesswoman with close to 20 years of business experience. Get ready for a mix of solo deep dives and inspiring interviews with awesome guests who will share how they have aligned their businesses with the lives they love. Let's dive in to align your business with the life you've always wanted. Welcome to another episode of Aligned with Kell. Today, I am joined by a business bestie and also an industry expert inside Bold Aligned Business. Welcome, and thank you for joining me today on Aligned.
Thanks so much, Kell. I love it. And I love the topic of aligned. I think it's amazing, and you're going to share so many great content on here. So thanks for having me.
Well, I'm very excited to chat with you today about your journey in business and how it is that you have arrived in what it is that you're supporting people with now. But give us a bit of a quick overview of your incredible business journey to date.
Oh, a quick overview. I feel like saying to people, strap on in, people. Strap on in. We've got a story. Look, and this is going to be one of those classic. When I was a child, but literally when I was a child, I was at 7. I had my own business. I started in business. You know those terrible coat hangers that had like the nylon things that you would, I don't know, maybe people don't, maybe I'm showing my age there, but I used to put nylon around coat hangers and sell them for Mother's Day. And I would go and do it Easter and Mother's Day as well. There must be something I wanted to capitalize on Mother's Day. But I would make chocolates, homemade chocolates. I go and door knock all the neighbors in my street, and I had my little book of orders, and I did my little spreadsheets, and just like that was at 7. So my parents still have those books, actually. It's really cute. But, way back then, I guess being in business was always something I was really interested in. It always fascinated me. I guess I loved the concept of earning money. But I also was always really driven to doing something that people needed. And so a couple of things I realized: I wasn't very good at cooking and I wasn't very creative. So my 7-year-old business quickly shifted to something else. And so throughout my childhood, I was always doing some type of business. I was coaching hockey teams. I was coaching swimming. My dad had a swim school. So I was always involved with watching how Dad would run the business, and I'd help him with the books. And I don't know, there was always just something that I loved, and I guess it just became a part of the fabric of who I was. And it was, I guess, getting into the journey. For those people that follow my story, know that I had quite a significant injury when I was 17, and that really shifted the way that I looked at my work, and I looked at what I wanted to do with my life. And I became an occupational therapist. And because during my recovery, I had met an OT, and I thought I loved what they did. They were very passionate people making a big difference. But my business drive was always still there. And so I started my own practice at 25. And I can remember, Kell, I've got to say this. I can remember an occupational therapist at the time who was working with kids. And I was talking to her about my want and desire to go into business at 25 and to have my own practice. I could see there was a big need for the work that I wanted to do. And the thing that stuck out for me was she said to me, "You will never make money working with kids." And for some reason, I was just like, that's actually not why I was going into it. I was like, I knew I could make a difference for kids. I knew that I had a heart for kids. I connected well with kids, and I knew, and I could see things from a different perspective to what was being delivered. And I just remembered that one comment. I thought, why does being of service have to be driven by money? And so that was a really interesting comment. Of course, me being me, I thought, well, I'm going to show you love. I'm going to prove you wrong. Not that you can make money from children, but you can be of service to people as well as running a successful business.
Yes.
And it was one, that you have those pivotal moments, Kell, where someone says something and it just shifts everything for you. Yeah, that was it for me.
Yeah. And I mean, when you think about it, that was like over 20 years ago. right? And
Yeah,
that
it was
one
over
statement,
20 years ago.
because we're actually twins.
We are twins, which is
We
so
are twins.
exciting. Same
Yeah.
birthday.
Yep, same birthday. And isn't it incredible that that statement still to this day stands out as something that you will never forget? And it is one person's opinion, but you can think about people that are impressionable and young hearing statements like that can ultimately change their entire business journey. And thankfully it didn't for you. But yeah, I just wanted to really like point that out. I just think that that is something that we need to be mindful of. And I, particularly for me as a business coach, I'm someone that never wants to put my opinion onto someone when I am working with them, whether or not it's a member inside Borderline Business or a one-on-one client. But so from that moment, what transpired from there?
Well, so I started the building of services of Angela Lockwood. I started a company called Sunrise Health, and I was so proud of it because it was an allied health practice for children with disability. And what I loved about it was right back then, so many moons ago, the realm of disability and healthcare was very different to what it is now. And what I found during that time was that I could respond to the needs of people who really needed help in a way that was heart-led, but in a way that didn't leave me starving as well. Because I think one of the things we find often is we want to go into an industry where we want to be of service and we want to make a difference, but we can't do that if we haven't got an income, if we're not upskilling ourselves, if we don't have great people around us. So right on early in the piece, I surrounded myself with amazing mentors who were successful in business, but not just health, were successful in a whole range of businesses, different industries. I was in mastermind programs. You know, here was me sort of in my sort of mid-20s, mixing it with these people in suits and, you know, talking about very important things. And I guess I became a real sponge, is that I immersed myself with in so many different topics that I had this real hunger and thirst to learn. And what ended up happening was I grew the practice to quite a few centres. I had a whole heap of staff, allied health professionals working with me. And during that time I had 2 children. You know, things were going amazing until they weren't. And, you know, to everyone else on the outside, things were going like I couldn't have done any better. I was inducted into a Customer Care Hall of Fame. I think I was 28 or something. I was up against banks, and our service were winning awards each year. We won it 3 years in a row, and then we're inducted into the Hall of Fame because of the level of care we were showing people, but the business savviness we also had, and that it was quite an amazing time. But then I can remember, Kell, there was a point in time where we had grown so quickly, we're providing amazing services to the community, making really great money as well, but also being of service in lots of different areas in the community as well, not just through the business. And then I can remember going, oh, this has all got a lot. This is a lot. And there was one specific moment I can remember where it was like that Matrix moment where everything just stood still and everything froze. And at the time I had my daughter in my arms at work behind the desk. I had my neck in a brace. Because we didn't know what was going on, I had positional vertigo. Life was very stressful. I was trying to be everything to everyone. And then I remembered at that moment going, this was not what I thought. This was not what I wanted to create. And look, decisions are decisions. You can't change things that you did in the past, but I did pack up and sell, and I did it very quickly. Very reactionary measure to very high stress. And looking back, probably would have done things a little bit differently, but so be the rest of my story of unfolding and unpacking that and helping other people work through those moments where they feel stuck so they don't make reactionary decisions that they might either regret or don't make reactionary decisions that don't work out for them. So that's probably up to a very pivotal point. The rest from that point on is still working for myself. I think it's 19 years this year, and very proud of the work I do in helping people find focus in their lives. Written a few books, been in media, running lots of workshops, mentoring programs, and I'm just so thankful for the work I get to do, Kell. But we keep going, we keep learning, keep, trying to expand, surround myself with all those amazing people that I did right at the beginning, and, trying to strategically listen to the right people.
Yeah. And I just want to double back kind of to that really pivotal moment where you said it was like a matrix moment and time stood still and you were like, wow, this is a lot. What sort of do you believe was the major challenge around that? Was it that you just got so big so quickly and it was just like the season of life that you were kind of emerging into had changed from when you first began? What do you put it down to be like, wow, this is maybe not where I thought I was headed and where you ended up?
Yeah, really great question. I think probably all of that. My season was I did have two little kids. I was sitting in staff meetings breastfeeding my daughter, not being present to either thing. I was breastfeeding while I was in the meeting, and I, gosh knows if she was actually drinking. And I don't know what I was telling the staff at the time. But what I found was that I was really spread very thin. And, I guess that's what's led to my work around helping people find slowness in their lives, make great decisions, and still do the things that they want to do, but not through speeding up and adding more in, not through doing so many things. Like Kell, I was working, running this business with 3 centres, a whole heap of very professional, expert staff that I needed to look after. I had, little kids, but I would do that during the day. I would see children during the day, which is very physically and emotionally taxing as well. We had just moved into a new space, a much bigger space, purpose sort of designed in interior. But then at nighttime, I was teaching aerobics, boxing. I was teaching 9 classes a week. I was doing all the right things, Kell. And I know, people who are listening to this, there's a lot of expectation that people put on us, but the most demoralizing and the most restrictive expectation we place is on ourselves. Expectations is we place on ourselves. And I guess going back without sort of unpacking that too much is going back to my injury. I felt like I was given a second chance. So, hey, I better go and make the most of this life I've been, re-given. And so I was doing everything for everyone, being involved in whatever you could be involved in. And what I didn't do was what I practice so much now and have practiced since. And I've really jumped into from that stage of my life, understanding how can we be successful? How can we do the things that we love? How can we focus on what's important to us and still have that level of satisfaction that we're living the life we want?
Yeah.
And so, it's a professional thing for me. It's a professional journey, but there's so many pivotal moments throughout my life where I've seen if I had done that, I'd slowed down and I had really been there and present and in the moment and thoughtful, life could be a bit different. But thankfully, practicing what I preach, life is great. I love the work that I do, but unfortunately, I've learned a little bit of the hard way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like, I can relate absolutely to what you've shared there, because when I had my Alabache franchise, I was exactly the same. When I first started that, I was without children, and then I had 2 girls, and then of course life really does change. And sometimes I think we're just so in it and we're in the busy that we often don't take a moment to step back and reflect and say, okay, where am I actually headed here? What is it that I might perhaps need to pivot on and make some changes in order for me to be able to have the best of both worlds? And that's something that I really work with my clients and members on, is ensuring that they're building the business, that it aligns with the season of life that they are in, because that absolutely changes. And it's not just if you become a mum. There are many different things that can change in life at any given moment. And I think sometimes it's just about taking pause and stepping back and saying, okay, let's have a look at where am I satisfied with, where am I overwhelmed, what am I stressed with, etc. And so back in, I think it was November last year, which seems to have gone very, very quickly, you came into Boulderline Business and shared with the members, some of the strategies about really kind of being able to focus in what is right now a very highly distracting world. Talk to me a bit about, what it is that you're doing in this for others, for organisations, for individuals. Let people know what it is that you do.
Thanks, Kell. Yeah, and I guess the easiest way to summarize it all is that I help people focus. That's it. So what's happening, we know now, is there are so many distractions. Some of them are within our control, and a lot of them aren't in our control. There's things that are designed in our world to, be the shiny object that's constantly jumping up in front of us, and willpower to ignore those is really hard. It's sometimes really difficult. So my work for many years, so I originally wrote, I've written a couple of books, but the one where I sort of more explore around the importance of slowing down and focusing and looking at the distractions in our world was Switch Off. And I wrote that back in 2017. And when I look at that was a long time ago, right? And then when I look at that, as I think I was sort of heeding warnings to people back then going, hey, if you don't put some really great habits in place, we're going to be in trouble. We're going to have this sort of fallout. And interestingly, I reference, and I was very fortunate to have endorsed on the front of that book, Carl Honor, who I was very strongly influenced by in terms of his writings around under pressure. And it was 10 years prior to that, when I wrote, prior to writing Switch Off, that he had written a lot of work around, the similar sort of things. So what I'm seeing now, Kell, is I'm getting called, not just in one industry, but many industries and varying industries, to help and support people and educate people on how do you stay focused on the things that are really important to you when we have so much going on. And so, for example, I'm, working in childcare centres. I'm working in sort of government organisations. I'm working in the finance sector, and you name it. And this is, I guess, the thing that I'm seeing so much now is it's the challenge of staying focused is felt widespread. That
Yes.
not small business owners, like, being an expert in Boulderline Business was also an example, is you've got business owners who are really struggling as well. And it's interesting, having had a head injury myself and really needing to relearn and understand my brain, I'm noticing as I'm getting older, even more so the importance of looking after our brain and giving it the rest that it needs, but also giving the energy that it needs and giving our brains the ability to be able to switch off when needed. Because if we keep pushing, our brains are going to stop us. Brains are going to go, you know what, I've had enough. You've pushed me too far. And what we're seeing is such a significant increase in neurological conditions. I was very fortunate to have interviewed recently the CEO of Parkinson's Australia about the increase of that neurological condition and what they're seeing and the patterns that they're seeing for brain health, not just for elderly, but also young onset Parkinson's. It was a fascinating conversation. So, Kell, the work that I'm doing, although it's not industry specific, it's very message specific.
Yes.
So if people are finding that they're having difficulty focusing either on their work or in certain aspects of their life, or they're wanting to learn some of those habits that they can instill in their life, then either through my mentoring programs or through workshops, but a really good low entry insight into getting the information you need is on Distracted, which is my podcast that I'm very, very excited to be. And I think you've actually been on that too, which
I have. I've been. Yes, I have, and it was such a great conversation. And I think something that I know from personal experience is that when you came in as a guest inside Boulderline Business, the women that were able to join us live, but also those that have since watched the recording, one of the key takeaways that I've heard over and over again is that you put a spotlight on the fact that they just had to determine what was the next highest priority that they wanted to focus on in their business. And that sounds very simple, but it's not always easy to do. But through the strategies that you shared on that masterclass, we've had women just become crystal clear on what it was that was the next thing. And probably the biggest thing was we actually had to come out and create podcasts, because through watching that and being on that session, they were like, this is the thing that I want to do. And I've been distracting myself with all of these other things. And they got to the root cause of why they were distracting themselves, but also then just said, this is the only thing that I want to do next. And they've actually gone and done that. So I just find that, we can often not even realize how distracted we are based on, all of the things that could be going on in life. I want to talk about, though, something that you have recently done within your own schedule. And I guess for me, it's really important to understand that we are all different, and that we need to determine, what is our highest priority and how do we remove distractions in order for us to be our most productive and effective. And I'd love you to share what it is that you've done and what you found that's really working for you.
Oh, yes, my new thing, but it doesn't feel new anymore. But geez, it feels great.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I teach people is understanding your energy flow. And as you've just mentioned, everyone's very different. And when you can understand your energy flow, and it's not just when you feel energized, it's actually when your brain is feeling like it's ready or prepared or it's in the right space. One of the things I was noticing, Kell, was that come about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, my brain was very tired. And as I said, having had a head injury prior, I'm very aware of my brain and what happens within it. What I noticed was that period of time, it wasn't to do with my diet. It wasn't to do with not having a to-do list. It wasn't to do with not being hydrated, all those things that, if you Google the ways to stay focused, it'll come up. What I noticed was my brain had actually hit a point where it couldn't push through anymore. And whatever I did when I pushed through that wasn't the best work, I have to admit. It was just so effortful. So what I looked at is I did take that step back and I went, right, Ange, what can you do to help you be at your most productive level? So what I did is I decided 4:30 in the morning was when I would start work. Or actually, I better preface that it's not a badge of honor either. It's tough. But what I would do is I would get up at 4:30 in the morning. I'd allow myself about half an hour, usually one little sneaky snooze hit. And sometimes I would go, so I have some practices that I call my bookend habits. And my bookend habits in the morning, I made myself a little bit of time where definitely journaling. Another game-changing habit for me was not journaling at nighttime, shifting that to the morning and writing in my journal how my day unfolded. So if that makes sense. So at the beginning of the day, I write how my day went, like it was the nighttime. Anyway, that's a whole nother episode. That's been an amazing habit. I have a big glass of water. I do some stretches. And then I'm ready to go and I'm at my desk. And I do have to say I'm very fortunate that I have a great office that I work from at home, which allows me to do this. And I also have the flexibility of time because I don't need to be at a office at a particular time. I don't need to commute for an hour to get to work. So I understand that for some people, this is really tricky, but it's not impossible. So I get up and I do my priorities. Come 5 o'clock, I am off and racing. And Kell, the big thing for me is it's not about cramming more into my day. And that's really important. Time management strategies are always about doing more. They're always about how can you cram more into your time and get more things done by managing your time. But the strategy that I use is more about understanding my brain, understanding my energy flow, but also being really clear on when my brain is at its peak. So my brain is at its peak. I ever think I would say this at 5 o'clock till 8:30 in the morning. And traditionally, because I'd listened to other sort of strategies, for me, I was out exercising, and I know that works for you. You love that.
Yes.
For me, what I found is it would take me a while to get back into the flow. I would come back, I'd get ready, I'd get the kids off to school, I'd do all those things, and it was sort of like 9:30. And then because my brain is the way that it is that it would fatigue really quickly. So I'd only have a very short, condensed period of time to do things. By shifting it earlier in the morning when I understood when my peak focus was, man, I'm getting so much done in the shorter period of time with less effort. And I think that's really important. It's not about doing more in a shorter period of time and being effortful. It's doing more in a shorter period of time with effort, without effort. And that for me has been a huge game changer. Not only am I being more productive, but I have more energy, and the work that I do at the end of the day doesn't need as much cognitive loading. So it's more my smaller, quick win tasks that I don't need to think much about.
That's exactly what I was going to ask. So what is the work that you're doing at that 5 to 8:30 in the morning? Like, give us an insight as to what are you really achieving at that time, being that your brain, as you said, is at peak.
So it would be thoughtful, like a proposal. So if I've got new work coming in and then I need to think about the design of that, it would be, for example, today, I was putting the, sessions together for a 1.5 day workshop that I'm running for an organization. So wanting to make sure that the information I'm putting in and the content, because even though AI does all these amazing things nowadays, I still want to make sure that I'm being the thought leader in this space, not just reverberating and copying everyone else's information. So my deep work is about, I guess, going back to that, what of service do I need to give and what's the best quality of work that I need to give? So proposals, programs, it might even be I'm working on my 3rd book or 4th book now. So it's about doing that as well and going, and I guess, Kell, it's the deep work. It's the deep thinking stuff, okay? And a couple of benefits too is the house is dark, so I'm not distracted by the beautiful day outside. Everyone's in bed. Hubby's gone to work. So I'm not distracted. No one's emailing me at 5 o'clock in the morning. So I have created a distraction-free environment. And one of the things, I guess, that leads into this is the day before, I have already written down what is it that I'm doing at that time. So I'm not waking up in the morning going, okay, I've journaled, I've done all my, great health habits. Now what do I feel like doing?
Yeah, you're very planned and scheduled about what's going to transpire in that time.
Exactly, but it's not a big, deep plan. So my dad actually gave me this strategy, and I love it. So I have a notebook, and on the front it says "must" on the back of it, and it's just the little tiny pocket ones. On the back it says "like." So what I'd like to do, what I must do. I flip it open and I write down what are the no more than 3 things that I must do. And I don't do anything else until I do those things. And what I find is that first one is what I do the moment I hit the sort of computer.
Yes.
And a benefit of all of this, Kell, is that I'm done by the time my brain's done.
Yes.
So when my brain and my energy has naturally hit its slump, I don't need to go and reach for the chocolates. I don't need to go and do, bad habits that, maybe normally I would. For me, I then go out and I might go for a walk, or I could go for a walk at lunchtime if I needed to, if I felt my energy needed a bit of a boost.
Yes.
So just little things. And I guess one other thing for me too is that what it allows me to do is I'm not starting my day getting the kids out the door. Now, my kids are a little bit older, so it's not like they're little tiny kids. And I get that needs a lot more work, but my break time comes when they're awake, when they're waking up. So I can be there with them at breakfast.
Yes.
I can get those things done. Then they're off, they're on the bus, and then I return. So it's this natural break at a time that's important for me as well.
Yeah, I love that. I'd love to ask you a question in regards to probably a very common philosophy around prioritizing what it is that we should or need to get done in a day, which both of those words are like probably heavy. But a lot of people say you always attack the task that perhaps you've been avoiding for the longest, always attack the task that you perhaps see as the hardest. Do that first and move that out of the way in order for you to then move on to the others. Is that like a blanket rule that everyone should follow, or is there people that perhaps need to identify getting some quick wins might build the momentum towards the bigger task? What's your experience around that type of concept?
I'm going to say it depends. And the reason it depends, some days it's really easy for me to focus on the big things, but my hormones might be impacting it. I might have had an interrupted sleep. One of the kids might have walked in the middle of the night. I don't know. There might have been something that happened that impacted my ability to be able to have a good rest.
Yes.
A whole range of reasons. They're just two examples. So sometimes my little quick win list is huge. So getting rid of some of those might help. But what I suggest to people, like my little notebook of must and like, we don't start off with the likes. Okay. Yes. Now, whatever that is, and it doesn't mean that you don't like to do it. What it means is there's things that really at the beginning of your day, if you got rid of them, it would free your thinking.
Yes.
Okay. And there's so many different analogies, golf balls in the jar and sand and all those sort of things. But honestly, all of them are great. And I would listen and read. I've spent my entire life reading every type of book that you can imagine on time. I'm a bit obsessed with it. But what I would suggest for people is just making sure you're not cutting corners by doing the quick wins, because there's dopamine in your body, which is a neurotransmitter that gives you that hit. And everyone sort of refers to it as like the reward neurotransmitter. And what we're doing a lot, and people know it now with like likes on Facebook and all that. But when it comes to tasks, your dopamine will hit every time you tick something off the list. So it's really easy to fall into the trap of your quick win things. Oh, I feel good, I feel good, I feel good. And then once you transfer over to that thing that you either don't want to do or is a bit difficult starting, or it feels too big, what you'll do is you'll feel a big energy slump.
Yeah.
All right. So you've got win, dopamine's just going nuts in your brain. It feels great. And then you're going to the thing that you not necessarily want to shift to. So your body goes, oh, I don't like this.
Yeah, right.
Okay. So you're sort of setting yourself up for failure if that's your default, that you do the quick wins first. What you want to do is jump in, do a little bit of mindfulness before you do that thing that maybe you don't want to do, the big task, the overwhelming task, or lots of steps, and just go, all right, I'm going to do this. How can I be in the best possible position to get me started on this? Look at it in a great way, break it down if you need to, get that work done, give yourself a time limit, whatever works for you. And then when that's done, then shift to the quick wins. Now, it's the recommended, and from a neurological point of view, it works, okay? But there's some days where that big thing just feels way too big. So cut yourself some slack, give yourself that dopamine hit, but just don't make it a daily habit.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you've unpacked like the actual science behind that. And I often will say to my members or my one-on-one clients that it is really a journey of self-awareness, and it's about determining what actually works for you. But to determine that, you actually have to be consciously aware and really, testing and measuring. Is it time? Is it task? Is it energy? Like, how best do you work? But I just love that you've kind of explained that dopamine hit. And I guess there's probably an element of we get addicted to that. And then that's how we kind of frame every day. And then we're really not achieving the important things and perhaps the deep work, as you said before. So I've absolutely loved this conversation, Ange. But what's next for you? You mentioned you're writing the 4th book, I think you said. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to say there because I have written a manifesto, sort of a life story for somebody as well, but no one knows about that one. So I'm not quite sure if I should, I don't know however many I've written.
Okay.
But yeah, I am. And it is actually about time, but I guess it's not a time management book. What it is, it's a realization about, hey, time won't wait for you, people. If you've got things in your life that you're wanting to do and you're burning, there's this passion in you that you want, or if you're flailing and you're not sure and you're stuck, time's not sitting there waiting for you going, hey, you just let me know when you're ready and I'm all good to go. Time will continue. And I guess a part of that realization too is elderly parents, aging parents, people around me who unfortunately have passed away unexpectedly. And the realization of just when you age, Kell, I love the work that you do around your seasons. And I think that's a really important conversation and model that you've developed there for people to understand, particularly people in business. And I remember looking at that work that you've done and thinking it really helped me understand. Right now, the season I'm in is really about understanding myself better. And saying, what, I guess, legacy do I want to leave in this world? And it sounds silly because it's not, I'm not that old.
No.
But time, like I said, time doesn't wait for us. So the next phase for me is getting my work out into, I guess, more industries, making sure people are doing the work that they love, because we don't get endless amounts of time in our lives. So rather than trying to push and go hard and, make things so hard for ourselves all the time by doing what we think we should do, just through some really simple things, you can actually start to live a life by design and live a life that you choose and still do all that other stuff. So, writing the book, I'm loving my podcast at the moment, if I could just say it like that. I'm absolutely, the people I have on there, Distracted took a little bit of a shift this year, which I am absolutely loving, the conversations I'm having with people around how do we keep up in this busy world. I'm just so excited for this next season, I guess, Kell, using your phrases, next chapter using mine, is helping people be okay with slowing down in this very, very fast and overwhelming world. And I hope that the work I'm doing with kids and with adults does somehow make a difference.
Yeah, I love that. And my very first episode of Aligned with Kell Quarrell was actually called Choose Your Hard. And I guess in part was actually talking about not stepping in and bringing the things to life that you have a burning desire to do based on a whole different, realm of reasons, but a lot of limiting beliefs, self-doubt, all of those things. But exactly what you're saying, right, is time doesn't stand still. And, it's kind of wild when you think about it, is that why would you not just have a go? Like, why wouldn't you just step into, seeing if these things that you really want to bring to life are going to work? Because what's the alternative? As you said, life and time will continue to pass us by. And so we can either be active in creating the life that we love and that aligns with all of the things that we want, or we just be a passenger and watch that time pass us by. So I love that, all of that stems back to also, as you said, getting clarity around, what are the things that are really important to us and making sure that we are having a life where we can do those things.
Yeah. And Kell, I think, I know through the work that I do, there's a lot of work out there about passion and purpose and all this sort of stuff. In fact, it's my first keynote I ever developed was around passion, purpose, and partnerships, and I loved it. But what we need now is to cut through the noise. So we can Google all the strategies that we want. We can find out as much information. We can ask AI to write us a plan. The challenge for us all is it all still feels too overwhelming. So even though the information is out there, what I'm finding is people are still looking for an ally to go, can you show me how this applies to me? And that's the work that I do, is I show people, how can you slow down and still do the things that you want in your life in a really practical, very measurable, scientific-based way. Because like I said, the information's out there, but we want to know, how can we do this in our life? Because really, ultimately, it's really just about our life, right? It's about how we want to be, how we want to turn up. So yeah, translating that for people is sort of what I love to do.
Yeah. And I think, when I look at it from, perhaps launching a business idea or concept, or maybe going to that next level in business, often business owners or entrepreneurs feel like they need to have all of the information all at once. But really, it's often about what is just the next step, what is the next highest priority in this journey. And, that whole concept of how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time, all of those types of things. But I think, going back to your session inside Bold Aligned Business, that was the key takeaway that I heard repetitively from members. It was just like, I don't need to know it all. I just need to know what is my next step. And that's where I put my focus. And from there, I just repeat the process to the next step. And I think, as you said, it's about self-awareness, and it's finding what works for the individual, because as you said, it's based on their life, and that's what's important. So when's the next book out, Ange? I'm going to put you under the pump.
Oh my gosh, the pressure. Oh my goodness. Oh wow. I'm not sure, Kell. It's funny, the other night I wrote a whole workshop in my sleep, a whole one-day workshop. And now when I say in my sleep, I was laying in bed in the dark, writing it in a notebook, so I wouldn't wake my husband up. So things come to me sometimes when I least expect it. So I could say the book will be written in 6 months, or I could say 2 years. But the irony of it, Kell, is time won't wait for me to write it. But I have a very strong sense that this is what's needed right now. Yes. I am driven a lot by my intuition. And the logic tells me, right? So intuitively, I know that it's a message that's needed, but logically, I look around and there's a lot of people really struggling to find focus in their lives. So I know that, as I wrote in my first book, when logic and intuition come together, that's when we make the best decisions. So that is a very long-winded way of me saying to you, Kell, I have no idea when it's going to come out, but I want to do it very soon.
All right. So we'll maybe say stay tuned for Ange's next
I will
book.
let you know.
The beautiful thing is that you've done it multiple times before, so you know the process and you know how to do it. And you are truly one of the most educated and intelligent, kind-hearted people that I know. I feel very grateful that our paths have aligned and we are very good friends, but you are also an incredibly savvy businesswoman, and you've taught me many things. You're very systems-based, where I'm perhaps not so much. And so you've shared that with me, which I'm very grateful for. But I just want to say a massive thank you for joining me on today's episode. If people wanted to find you, where would they go?
The easiest place is go to angelalockwood.com.au, or on LinkedIn. I do a lot of posting on LinkedIn, and just look at Angela Lockwood on there. A lot of articles. I think I've written over 100 articles on LinkedIn. But if you're not a LinkedIn person on there, Instagram's just my fun way of connecting. Yeah. But just go to angelalockwood.com.au. It's all on there.
And don't forget also, Ange has her own podcast called Distracted. So you can also find that on all of the podcast platforms. But I'm going to put everything in the show notes where you can find all of Angela's work. And also, if it is that you would love to join us inside Bold Aligned Business, Ange's previous session is there in our recording hub, so you can watch that on repeat at any time. But thanks so much, Ange. It's been awesome, and sending you lots of love.
Thanks so much for having me, Kell, and I love this podcast. All the best with it.
Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Aligned with Kell Quarrell. I hope our conversations have inspired you to be bold in the pursuit of your dreams. If you enjoyed today's episode, I'd be so grateful if you shared it with the business women in your life and took the time to leave a review. Your feedback is like an ice-cold glass of Prosecco, always welcomed and always appreciated. You might even consider giving the show a follow. Until next time, continue to take bold action towards aligning your business with your deepest desires.